Alright, so hey everyone. Today I want to take a look at the Deadzones for the PRAGMATA Sketchbook demo. This is being demonstrated on PC. Normally I try to disable the Steam input settings just to allow the game's controller support to be demonstrated unfiltered. However, this game seems to require Steam input to enable its controller support. I don't really understand how that works, but that's what we'll be doing. And it seems that both X input and direct input controllers controls the same, so this should apply to Xbox and PlayStation controllers. But anyway, getting into it, for movement we have a 24% radial dead zone, and for the diagonal movement we have a restriction right around the horizontal axis, so 20% around the horizontal axis is restricted, and this is the same when moving around generally like this, but also when aiming, which makes this a little easier to demonstrate. So you can see that if I move anywhere in this blue region, I'm staying pretty aligned with this crack between the windows, but as soon as I break out of this, you see pretty obvious diagonal movement occurring. This appears to be unscaled, meaning that when you exit this axial dead zone, it doesn't rescale the angles, so you actually lose diagonal movement. So once you break out of this, you seem to move in the correct direction, which becomes more noticeable the closer you get to the dead zone, because this is functionally, you can see that I'm going perfectly straight and then basically at a 45-degree angle. And if we say run into a wall, align the wall so we're moving directly into it, see just how obvious the angle changes are. Just barely break out of this threshold. How even more obvious when right around the dead zone. This may not be too noticeable during gameplay because Hue controls very sluggishly, so the animations can hide that transition. But I think this is something that should be removed, and you should be able to have full diagonal movement available. I don't think there's any benefit specifically in this game to prioritize forward movement, but even if they kept this restriction, they should at minimum scale it so you're not losing any diagonal movement with it. But again, I think that just removing it would be the best way to address it. But for the movement speed, you do start at about 40% of your general of your total normal movement speed, but then you increase linearly until full stick tilt. The striped lines on this graph represent the sprint threshold. So if your stick is anywhere outside of the dead zone, you're allowed to start sprinting. So if I can move right here, and then you'll start sprinting, and it'll stop either when you press the sprint button again, or of course fall back into the dead zone. Sprinting appears to be about 1.5 times your normal movement speed, but take that exact number with a grain of salt because movement tests aren't very accurate. For the camera, I actually wasn't able to formally test the Deadzone because the acceleration started so slow. You can see that if I hold my stick right here, there's basically nothing visible. And we'll get to the curve in a second, but I basically assumed a radial 24%, both because the movement has it, as well as this having a full diagonal movement, which is a trait of radial dead zones for the most part, and the size of the dead zone that matched the curve. So I didn't formally test this, but it seems like that would be what it should be. Anyway, so assuming that, we have a 24% radial dead zone like movement, and you can't really see it unless I move significantly further. But here we have full diagonal movement, so if I move above the vertical axis, I start looking up, and if I move below it, start moving down, and this is most obvious when looking around the horizontal axis, and you can see that it flips direction right as you pass over the horizontal axis. The acceleration curve is a power function with a degree of about 3.5, so it starts extremely slow and then starts building up faster the closer you get to full stick tilt. This is an incredibly slow acceleration curve, and actually when I tested the beta version for Resident Evil 4 on the remake on the Xbox, this was the exact curve it used there, and part of the reason why the dead zone seemed much bigger is because so much of the initial movement is so slow to almost be inaccessible. You have to move your stick over 60% to get beyond 10% of your total speed. So I think if nothing else changes with the camera, I think simply switching from this current degree of 3.5 to quadratic 2 would both speed things up, but be more than precise enough for anything you would need. But as far as the maximum diagonal speed, and that is, you can see that my stick can go beyond the limits of this circular graph, and if uncapped, that would mean the diagonals would be faster. However, they are capped here, so that moving right here is the same as actually moving right on the edge of the circle. These are just treated the same magnitude, and that makes it so that all your diagonals are the same speed regardless of which direction point in at maximum tilt. So that's good. And the sensitivity for both the general camera right here as well as the aiming camera are the same. So the sliders, if you set them the same, they'll be the same, and the vertical sliders are weighted the same as the horizontal, so if you set the same values, you're going to get the same vertical and horizontal speeds. There are two types of aim assist in this game. The one with a toggle option has you snap onto a target and lock onto that target until you move the thumbstick. The other one is the deceleration options. This has you your crosshair slow down when passing over a target. This is a pretty common aim assist type. However, the window is what's kind of unique about it. The window for this is actually very tightly defined to the enemy models, so you can actually lose aim assist if your crosshair goes between the opponent's arm and its torso, or in between its legs. It's not just a larger box like you see in many other games. I think the deceleration options, while they are a common aim assist type, are completely unnecessary for this game, mainly because of the curve. The curve input starts so slow that really you don't need to make it any slower. But that about covers things. Overall, I think the core implementation is pretty good. However, there are some requests I would like to see, and that is one, to add Deadzone options for both the movement and camera stick. For movement, removing this restricted diagonal movement, this would give you all full and correct diagonal movement. And if they do keep this, they could always add an option as well as scale this so that players who do want restriction can have it and not lose any of their angles while it's active. But for simplicity, I think that this could simply be removed and there won't be any problem with that. And for the camera specifically, having an option to control the acceleration curve. This would allow players to use curves that are still precise but much faster than this, down to linear. And if a curve option wasn't added, at minimum, I think that's simply changing from this curve, this 3.5 degree curve, to a quadratic would be a much better default. But I'm going to demonstrate that now. So I'm going to use an anti-deadzone to counter this game's deadzone and demonstrate what this would look like without, with a 0% camera deadzone. So you can see here, now that I can move within the 24% range and there is movement occurring, but because the curve is starting so slow, you really don't see much movement. I mean, they could really, just have set the deadzone to 0, and I don't think anyone would complain about this drift. So this would be a 0% deadzone if they allowed the option for it. But I'm also now going to counter this curve completely, so it leaves you with a linear curve. So doing that, you can see now with the same movements, you're getting a much more significant movement. So this is a linear curve. So we have the same maximum, but it just starts out much faster. And of course, if a curve option was added, this may be too sensitive. You can see that even though the stick centers well, there's still significant drift with a linear curve. But with a curve option, you'd be able to finely tune an option between linear to the default 3.5, or even up to a 4th degree curve. So this is really just what I'm requesting, is just a few changes. Removing the restricted range for movement, adding deadzone options for the movement and camera, and adding a curve slider. So again, the fundamentals I think are pretty good. It just needs a few additional options and it will be perfect. But that about covers things. So thanks for watching, and everyone, have a great rest of your day.